So welcome everyone to the session tonight. I am going to enable transcription as well. Thank you so much for visiting us virtually, of course. Whatever time zone you're in, if it's the morning, afternoon, or the evening, thank you for joining us. You are here to learn about study abroad with one of my favorite offices, with Education Abroad and Autumn, a great colleague and friend to learn more about studying abroad at Case Western Reserve. So without further ado, I will leave it to Autumn. Just a couple quick things. I talked about the transcription. You'll also notice that there is a Q&A box where you can add your questions during the presentation. We'll make sure to leave time at the end to get your questions answered. And thank you again, everyone, for joining, and we look forward to hearing from Autumn.
Thank you so much, Liana, and thank you for everyone who's joining as well. I am Autumn Beechler-Steeving. I'm an assistant director in the Office of Education Abroad here at Case Western Reserve University. I have a PowerPoint that goes over some of the basics of study abroad that should take maybe 25 to 30 minutes to go through at the most. And then after that, we can have lots of time for questions and answers, so you can really get involved and discuss study abroad and what it looks like at Case Western. So, of course, if you have questions as they come up, as I'm presenting, feel free to go ahead and just pop them into the chat as well.
Autumn and I, before the session started, we're just talking about these virtual backgrounds. And every year, the office, one of my favorite things that they've done in the past is provide a calendar of the pictures. So every year they, do a photo contest. And so I told you earlier, they have absolutely the best photos that come out of the whole thing. So I think we're up and running.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because every photo in this presentation is a student photo that they took on a study abroad. So we can just start with that. So I always like to start with a little why would you study abroad? I know that you're all interested because you showed up to this presentation, but there are a lot of different reasons that maybe are kind of beyond what's at top of mind for why to study abroad. You have the obvious experience of different culture, different ways of thinking, different ways of problem solving, but also you can set yourself up for success in today's global marketplace. So it's only about 12% of undergraduate students in the United States that study abroad. And when you're competing to enter into a workforce with a highly diverse population, and you find that you need the ability to communicate with others very different from yourself, to be resourceful, to think on your feet, having a study abroad on your resume and having that experience to talk about when you're in an interview, when you're discussing a time when you were able to think on your feet, is a really, really wonderful way to set yourself apart and to set yourself up for success. So there's lots of skills that employers seek that directly come from study abroad. And then of course you get to travel, explore, you get to enjoy. I mean, it's fun as well. So all kinds of benefits. To put names to some of them, this is a list of the top 10 skills that employers say they want in recent college graduates. And if you take a look, there's some pretty obvious ones here that you can greatly enhance from studying abroad. Problem solving skills. When you study abroad, you are entering into a new culture, starting to operate inside of a different academic system, learning a new way of being and interacting and engaging, and that involves a lot of problem solving. It also takes a lot of initiative to get out and go and study abroad and work through that whole process. Verbal communication skills, detail orientation, flexibility, adaptability is another obvious one. So when you just take a look at some of the actual evidenced skills that employers are looking for in recent college graduates, it's pretty obvious where the lines come from study abroad to getting a job. And then Case Western Reserve University. So we have 100% of our returned study abroad students say that they would recommend it. So, you know, that's a really good statistic as well. Some good research there. And then all of our majors can and do study abroad. 13% of Case Western Reserve University nursing students do. There are some very specific ways that I'll talk about for how to do that later. About 25% or a quarter of our engineering students, 40% of arts and sciences, almost 45% of our business students study abroad. And students also have access through study abroad to over 20 top 100 institutions worldwide. So Case Western Reserve University is obviously a very, very good school. It is an awesome school to get into. Students should be very proud of that. There are other very, very good schools out there as well. Through study abroad, our students can go to Oxford, our students can go to the National University of Singapore, they can go to the University of Auckland, they can go to the Sorbonne in Paris. So there are many institutions that can help further enhance that education section of their resume through study abroad. And then why study abroad at Case? Because we make it easy on you. So students keep all of their financial aid and scholarships no matter what study abroad program they choose and no matter how robust their package is. Courses are approved in advance when students are going on semester or summer programs where it's transfer credits. Most of our programs are in English, for better or for worse. And then the semester programs are cost neutral. So what that means is that when students go on study abroad programs for a semester, any of these locations where you can see the little blue dots on the map, they're going to pay their Case Western Reserve University tuition, no matter what that cost is. So the cost doesn't change whether they choose Oxford or the Sorbonne or, you know, the National University of Singapore. What does change is students will cancel housing and meals in Cleveland and start paying them abroad. And pretty frequently those are cheaper. So the cost neutrality comes in because the choice of academics is made not based on tuition at all. It's just a conversation about housing. How much might that cost and where can students go? So I've gone over the semester being cost neutral. And then there are also many, many, many scholarships. So we have a whole list on our website of more than 100 different scholarships. And quite a few of them, about a dozen, are scholarships that Case Western Reserve University has exclusive to our students. So we operate on side of those scholarships and work and take applications from students. It's just for Case students. There are also many national options that we support. The Office of Education Abroad has served on national scholarship review boards for like the Gilman, for other different scholarships. So when you're coming to us as a student to get scholarship assistance, we've reviewed these on a national level. And so we're very able to help. It's one of the things that we really, really try to do for our students is to make the money not an issue. And we also have lots of tips for budgeting on our website. So when you take a look at some of our semester and academic year, which we lovingly call long-term programs, there are over 75 programs in 35 different countries. Students can transfer back any kind of credit. They can transfer back credits for their major, credits for their minor, credits for breadth, electives, anything. And those are, again, approved in advance by Case Western Reserve University faculty. So students know before they go what they're transferring back and that they're going to stay on track for graduation. Students don't have to speak a second language when they study abroad, but language intensives are available. They're cost neutral, and semester and academic year study abroad is available for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We don't want freshmen to go quite yet because we want to get you comfortable at Case, and the overseas institutions also want you to have a transcript. And considering that the applications are about 6 months in advance, that means the student can have an actual application to a study abroad program is for fall of their sophomore year. We also have short-term programs. So these are available to any students. You can be a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and go on our short-term programs, our faculty-led programs. So these are 3-credit CWRU courses that travel over school break time. So you have a fall course, Biology 309, for example, And in winter break, you go with that biology class to Costa Rica and do field research. Or in the spring semester, you have a spring course in bioethics, health in the Netherlands, and over spring break, you go to Amsterdam with that class. So you're traveling with case students and with case faculty. You know in advance also what the 3 credits are that you're going to get on your transcript. And there are then flat rate tuition for semester because for the semester undergraduate students just pay a flat rate for fall or for spring. So there's no additional tuition added on for any extra 3 credit hour study abroad course. What is extra is a program fee. And the program fee will cover things like your housing in country, some or even all of your meals. Some of them cover flights. Most of them are around a few $1,000s, and they state right on the brochure page what they cover. We also have these types of programs in the summer. And in the summer, what you'll find is the same kind of model. It's Case Western Reserve University tuition. So summer is going to be an additional tuition cost because it's an additional term. And then the program fee for the same types of things. These are really fantastic because of the ability to travel with case faculty and the ability to see things in the country that you kind of wouldn't normally see. There's a relationship that develops between students and students on these programs that won't happen in Cleveland. And then there's a relationship student to faculty as well that can be really impactful for students to go on our short-term programs with the faculty. Summer study abroad at an overseas institution is another option that we have for students. So these are transfer credits for summer study abroad at an overseas institution, very much like the semester abroad option where you don't have to speak a second language, but they're available. You get the courses approved in advance through the course approval form. You'll apply through the Office of Education Abroad, meet with the advisors who have expertise in these areas and with the scholarships for these types of programs. And then for the summer at an overseas institution, it's the only time where tuition is not paid to Case Western Reserve University. The tuition and room and board and everything is paid directly to the overseas institution. Summer is a little bit more of like a free market. And then we have some special considerations just to talk about. So I know that many students who come into Case Western are pre-health, pre-med, and for those students, yes, you can study abroad. I'm actually the advisor for the pre-med students who want to study abroad pre-med advisor. And the best time to go, it tends to be spring semester of second year or fall semester of the student's third year, unless they're taking a gap year, then that changes up the timeline. What's really cool about studying abroad as a pre-med is that you have a lot of options for getting clinical exposure on your study abroad. So not only are you studying abroad, which medical schools love and they want to see, and they really feel it helps boost your diversity statements as well as your overall application, but then you can get additional clinical exposure when on your study abroad. So it's like double whammy. And some of those institutions that offer that are listed on the PowerPoint slide as well. There's also research abroad options that we have for students. We have programs where students can do a full semester of research. They participate as junior researchers supervised by faculty at the top 2% of research institutions in Europe. Usually the final product is a publication-worthy paper for those. We have some summer STEM research programs available. We have some of our own research programs available that work with our own faculty, that work with some of our partnerships abroad. And we also have research and internships and service learning all as options as an add-on to a study abroad existing semester or summer program. So you could go and you could take 4 classes, but one of those classes is an internship component or a service learning component or is research. So there's ways to kind of do it all. And we also currently, in the time of COVID, right now have virtual intercultural and global learning programs available where students can get a global experience through their computer in really intentional ways of working with like local language groups or local industry for internships, things like that. Finally, one of the easiest ways we have for students to go abroad are some of these bespoke programs, which have been developed both for chemical engineering majors, the Department of Chemical Engineering has actually come up with an exact specific list. If you're a chemical engineer, you can go to, here's your 4-year plan. You can take this semester, go to the University of Manchester, get these 4 classes, stay on track. Or you can take this semester, go to the University of Edinburgh, get these 4 classes, stay on track for graduation. It's all sequenced out for the students. That's really fantastic. We're working on getting some more of those types of preferred programs. We also have a similar workup with theater, where students know exactly what they're getting when they're going to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. They will get these courses, counts towards your major, you go second semester of your sophomore or junior year. And then additionally, we have a write-up for how exactly to study abroad as a pre-med, and make sure that the courses that need to be on a US transcript for medical schools are on a US transcript for medical schools. So it's how to do it as well. And then, so you're here, I've told you the details, you're interested, what's next? So set up a meeting with a study abroad advisor. There's a couple of ways to do with that. Email studyabroad@case.edu, and you'll get an automatic reply that will tell you how to make an appointment with us. Or there's connect with us on our website, case.edu/studyabroad. We've got walk-in hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, virtual drop-in hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 3. And we can also be found on My Journey for making appointments. Students can also talk to or email a study abroad ambassador. If you go to case.edu/studyabroad, click connect with us, there's the option for speaking with a study abroad advisor. And then there's also the option for getting in contact with the study abroad ambassador. And the study abroad ambassadors' emails are listed there. They're Case Western Reserve University students who have come back from studying abroad and just said, hey, I really want to talk to more students about this. So they've been trained by our office. They have a lot of resources for students. They're listed on our website to contact as well. And then there's the searchable database. So our website will link you directly to studyabroad.case.edu. And you can search how to study abroad, where to go based on majors, based on regions, based on, any different kind of drop-down box that's on that website. And then follow us on social media for more. So I told you I was only going to talk for a little bit, and that is my talk. I'll stop sharing my screen and go ahead and see what questions we might be able to answer.
Yeah, so a few of the questions already you've taken care of and you answered, so awesome. But one of the students actually was asking if you could go into a little bit more detail about studying abroad as a nursing major, maybe if you have some examples, how it's been done before. I'm assuming that the anonymous attendee is a potential nursing major. So definitely we've had some great nurses go abroad. So if you could touch on that.
Yes, 100%. So there are really 2 very good ways to go abroad as a nursing major. And the first would be to do a summer program in the summer after your freshman year. So I know that seems a little bit early. Summer after students' first years, they're usually trying to maybe go home, reconnect with family, but that is the time when you can go the longest as a nursing major, because every other summer after that you're going to have, 9 times out of 10, our nursing students are working at Cleveland Clinic or they're working at UH. And those summer jobs turn into their career. So you don't really want to sacrifice that for a study abroad, as beneficial as it is. So we recommend starting early and going in the summer after your first year to one of those programs that has some clinical exposure, or where you can work with public health or whatever it might be that your focus is. The other option for nursing students is a nursing course that is run actually out of the School of Nursing. It is for juniors and it goes in the spring semester. So it's nursing 395, I believe. And that course is a faculty-led short-term course. So it's spring semester. You're taking that course, you're working with your Case Western faculty, you're in the class with other Case nursing students, but then you actually, with this course, would go abroad in May, right at the very, very end of the year. and your experience abroad is to Ireland. And it's almost like a capstone sort of experience to what you've learned in that semester, like puts a bow on it. And that's a nursing specific course.
I love putting a bow on things, so that sounds great. Great to hear about the maximum allowed, not including short-term experiences. Is it 1 year? Is there a max?
There is. So students can transfer in post-matriculation a maximum of 38 credit hours to the university. And that would be transfer credits, 38 hours. So maybe some is from study abroad, maybe some is from summer somewhere else or somewhere at home. But that's post-matriculation. So anything that you get if you are a transfer student, those credits that are transferred in before you start, they do not count against that 38. That 38, you start over at 0 when you join the university, but you have to make sure that half of the credits for your major or minor are case credits, because case is giving you the major or minor. So you have to at least take half of them here.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize that, Autumn. So I love learning things during these sessions. It's great. So another question here is about international students. So we know when international students come to our university, they often call it studying abroad itself. But are there additional things that students who are coming and are international students are also planning to go and utilize study abroad with us,
Yes.
Additional things they should be thinking about?
Yeah, the additional things that they should be thinking about as an international student for study abroad, if you're looking at doing a short-term program, those can sometimes be a little bit tricky with visas. Depending on what passport you have, it's no secret that certain passports are privileged and others are not. And that's just an unfortunate fact of our global world. So that can be a little bit tricky with the short-term programs specifically. It's actually less tricky with semester programs because it's the overseas institution for a semester program that always sends the information to students, and they don't accept the students unless they know that they can, bring them in. Yeah. But another fun fact for you on that front is the percentage of international students that we have at Case Western Reserve University matches the percentage of study abroad students who are also international students. So like in pre-COVID times, where like 19% of CWRU students were international, 19% of study abroad students were international.
Learning so much tonight. I love it. Great point about the international students going abroad. And I know when we did the session previous, we've reiterated, you have friends in the education abroad office, make an appointment early, talk to them early. It's really a wealth of help and advice that you give. And so one of the questions was studying abroad with a double major. So psychology, nutrition on a pre-med track. They're asking kind of what countries could they be at? And there's some other questions and kind of along that same lines of, I'm this particular major, what kind, I think someone talked about computer science, where do people typically go? So I feel like it's a common question of someone saying, my major is XYZ.
Yeah,
where do I go? What can I do?
Yeah, that's what happens like all the time at our fairs. Like when we have fairs for new students, we'll be like just trying to like hand out quick information. Everyone's like, okay, mini advising session. Where can I go? But I mean, I do have answers for you, but I think the best use of your time would be to come in and make a study abroad appointment. For my psychology, nutrition, pre-med student, I would talk about King's College London. I would talk about Maastricht in the Netherlands. There's a couple of others, but those are the first two that come to mind. Computer science. I was just speaking with a computer science student today, and I think she might be going to Sheffield or Carlos Tresera in Madrid. We have a lot of places where you can go. And so it's just that one-on-one advising appointment, I think, is really important, because there might be more, there's always more that you're thinking of, that you want out of your study abroad, that isn't necessarily the first thing that you say in an info session or at a fair. But when we sit down and we talk about some of the different factors to different programs, we can really drill into what it is that will be the best for you.
Yeah, I think that kind of covers the overall questions when they're particular, which I know, a lot of students have. And I think that's true of our prospective students, but also true of our current students. One of the questions I think is a little bit different here, but is asking about student athletes and studying abroad. Is that something that you've seen before? Is it possible, and how you might advise a student athlete?
It would depend on the sport. You'd probably want to go abroad in the semester when you're not competing. Or if you're competing in both semesters, you would want to look at a short-term program or a summer program. But we work with many full, comprehensive, very large universities abroad. And so you don't lose practice. That's a piece of that one-on-one advising that is really important, where I think I mentioned this last time when we had like 100 questions about it, where I've had students in advising appointments being like, I really still want to ride horses when I'm studying abroad. How do I do that? And I'm like, oh, you can go here. So the same thing, I've had students who are like, I still really want to do my Bollywood dance when I study abroad. Where can I go? Or I need to continue to play ultimate frisbee. Where can I go? So we have institutions on our list that have the same sports as we do, and you can stay like fit for your sport still.
So this student is asking about, you mentioned previously where a lot of the programs, the language of instruction is English, but this student wants to know, is there potential to live with a host family to get the real influence of the language, to become more fluent in the language? Maybe you can talk about the maybe housing opportunities that might exist.
Yeah. If you're doing a language intensive, there is almost always not a host family option for you. So we have host family options for French language learning, for Mandarin language learning, for Spanish in Latin America, for German language learning. So the more common ones, definitely. There are host family options for students to stay and really get involved in the culture and eat some really delicious food while you're there. And it's also usually cheaper, and then meals are included. So host families are great. But I would also just say that, yeah, every school, every institution abroad is going to have a little bit of a different housing situation. They are, all but 2 of them on our list, guarantee housing to our students. And if you were interested in either of those 2 on our list, we will be talking about it. But many students still go because it's like Madrid. So there are just different options based on different programs and what the university has, but it's mostly university housing, or they help facilitate housing in the city because they have, like a website, like a searchable database that they have vetted, that they know that their students use all the time, and it works.
I think, we have mentioned different places. This student was, I think maybe a little worried that study abroad primarily just takes place in Europe, or, are there maybe other opportunities to go outside of Europe to study abroad? This student who asked this, I know you mentioned before the list of all the programs on the website. I did include in the chat the link, so please feel free to check out. There's a lot,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.
There's
But
a lot.
maybe you can talk about some non-European, options that students have taken advantage of.
Yeah, I'm gonna just throw this up real fast again. So here's our list of semester and year-long programs. So we have quite a few in Asia. A lot of those are comprehensive universities. National University of Singapore is a really popular one. We send a lot of students for a lot of different things. Hong Kong Polytechnic is very popular for our students. Shanghai Jiao Tong, University of Michigan joint program is really popular. We have a really cool new program in Kenya. It's a Turkana Basin Institute Field School. And it's like if you want to study bones. So it's run out of our Earth and Environmental Planetary Sciences. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Maybe I'm not. Department. Professor Prince House is the one who has set this up, and it's very, very cool for students who really want to, like get dirty and work in the field. There's a few options in Australia and Oceania. Australia and New Zealand are good options for students. Plenty in Europe, of course. Latin America, we have a lot in Argentina. We've got one in Brazil and Chile and Ecuador. We have programs in the Middle East and North Africa with Egypt and Israel and Jordan, Morocco, Turkey, the UAE, the American University of Sharjah is a popular one. The American University in Cairo in Egypt is a popular one. So just there's really not a limit kind of to like our regions, other than maybe we don't have Antarctica on there. Oh, you're muted.
A lot.
A lot.
The
Yeah.
answer is so much. And I think between the long term and the short term, the faculty led that are also always changing too. I mean, you all always are adding new, really interesting programs. I know that you all are constantly going and vetting the places and making sure that we're sending our students, which kind of brings up a question that one of the students asked, actually a couple students asked, which is, if they find a program that is not on the website, or a program that is run or, connected to Case Western Reserve, is that an option for them to, use and go into that program? How might that work?
There's a petition process, and students have to provide an academically compelling reason for that program over the others, and then have the support of a faculty member to sort of corroborate that reason. Not to say this is a great school, because there are tons of great schools, but to say like, yeah, this is really a good program for this specific student because their career goals and academic goals are blank. So that is definitely a possibility. The majority of time when I speak with students about petitions, a lot of the time we find that there is a program on the list that will work just as well. And it has an advantage of one thing or another because of the way Case works with the school, provides more access to certain things. But yeah, not every list can meet every student's needs. So there is a petition process and a way to do that.
Yeah, and a great reminder too that you have advisors. That's why we have you. That's why, if you want to study abroad, make an appointment early. I always recommend that to the students who ask. Just like the friendliest people that you can sit down and talk to. So go and make an appointment early in the process, have a conversation, learn about the things that you're interested in. And you all are this like walking encyclopedia. Well, we don't have encyclopedias anymore, but walking Google, right? Even better than I think the programs, the knowledge that you all have. A couple questions have been asked actually about GPAs and how that works when a student studies abroad and comes back. Thinking is your GPA frozen? How does that translate?
So when students study abroad for semester programs, it's transfer credit. And all transfer credit through Case Western, you have to get a C or better in order for it to transfer. And then the course itself, as long as the student gets a C or better on the course, it does not affect your Case GPA. So if you get an A, B, or a C, you get credit for the course. It shows up on your transcript. It checks off major requirements, minor requirements, etc. And as transfer credit, the policy that major requirements can't be taken pass fail, it does not apply. It's a completely separate policy because this is transfer credit. So transfer credit can count towards your major. So don't confuse the two, they're separate. And if you get a C minus, a D, or an F on the course from abroad, you just can't transfer it in. But that transcript from your institution abroad is part of your permanent academic record. So don't shoot for C's. Like this is Case, so you're probably not going to anyway. But yeah, don't shoot for the bare minimum in case you don't have the academic system figured out as well as you do, because it's new and it's gonna follow you around. That transcript, if you apply to graduate schools, professional schools, you have to turn in transcripts from every institution you've attended, and that's across the board. That's like a blanket statement to every institution attended you need transcripts from.
Yeah, what a great point, that even if it's not affecting necessarily your GPA, if you're thinking forward for graduate schools, you're still going to have to provide that information. So such good advice, such a good point. I know that you mentioned earlier in the presentation a little bit about different ways to study abroad with research. Have you heard of students getting paid to do some studying abroad program? I don't know whether you've seen that happen. I don't know if internships or things like that fall into the same category, but have you ever seen that kind of option?
Yeah, so we've had some students find and go out and get those, and I'm actually working with postgraduate planning to try to source some more of those right now, where students can, if not get paid, not have to pay for an internship abroad. The thing that makes it a little bit tricky is visas, because you would be getting work visa instead of a student visa, and a work visa, the company usually has to sponsor you. So that's the reason why internships abroad can tend to come with a cost, because the program, the company to bring you in, they have to sometimes pay a cost for your visa. So they'll try to make it worth their while by telling you it's your cost. But we have had some students source some of those on their own or through faculty, and I'm working to try to source some more of those.
I think you already answered this question before about the language requirement. They were just asking if they had to take a language class, if there was a certain proficiency. So you mentioned before, not, many of the language of instruction is in English, but there are some programs that have a language component. What is the, proficiency level, or how do you make sure that students are going in that they know the language?
Yeah. So if the students are, usually what I see across the board with our language programs is, if it's an intensive, they want you to be at an intermediate level, at a 300 level. They usually say 4 semesters of college level Spanish, French, German, whatever it might be, but that's 101, 102, 201, 202. So it's really a 300 level that they want you to be at. But I do want to touch on the language requirement too, because I wasn't very specific with that, but since the question is asked, I'll be specific. So the language requirement specifically says that if you study abroad in a country where English is not one of the official languages, you have to take one course while abroad that advances your skills in a official language of the host country. So the advances your skills is a little bit intentionally ambiguous because you could take, Spanish 201, or you could take a course taught in Spanish, depending on your language level. So someone who's fluent going to, like a heritage country, you don't have to take that language that you've been speaking since birth. You could take a class taught in that language. And that would advance your skills.
I love that explanation and point is giving that further clarification. I think that's really helpful actually, to know that, because you think like maybe you took a cooking class and that was in the language. Maybe that, that would be great. That sounds just lovely to me.
I doubt you'd get the cooking class approved for transfer back to Case Western by faculty, but it would meet the other requirements.
See, this is why you go see an advisor, because I'll sit there saying, I want to take a cooking class, and Autumn will be like, well, you also want to think about transferring those credits. So thank you. And that's why you are the advisor here. So really, really great point. So I know that a question came up here about the selectivity of the programs. Do you find that most students are getting to go to the place that they really desire to go? Kind of what that process looks like.
Yeah, pretty much in the world of study abroad, everybody wants you to study abroad. So you don't have really highly selective programs. But there are always exceptions to that rule. So Oxford is a really selective program. We have students who don't get in. We have programs inside of programs that are really selective, like King's College London has a health and society program where they only take 12 students a semester from all of their global applicants. And so sometimes we have students who apply and don't get into that one, but honestly, most of them do. Maybe that's my advising. But we do have some that are selective, and they usually it'll be kind of obvious in their application deadline. Like Oxford's is like a year earlier than every other program on our list, and they also require a 3.7. LSE, King's, they require 3.4. But for the most part, it's a 3.0. It's meeting the standard deadline. It's getting all of your materials in on time and not, sounding like a crazy person in them. That's what I tell students in advising appointments. Maybe I shouldn't say that when I'm being recorded, but
it's good. It's really helpful to have this information because I think it just reiterates that there's so many different opportunities and programs, and it's really a individual. There's so many individuals here asking questions about their particular nuanced experience or interest, which is exactly what you do when you sit down with an advisor. You say, I am, this individual, I want to do this type of program. I'm interested in doing these kind of things, and Autumn will help to kind of direct you in the best way.
My favorite example is like one of my very first students that I advised. He's like, I'm chemical engineering and violin performance double major, and I'm also pre-med, and I have a minor in Spanish. Where can I go? And I was like, welcome to Case.
Love it.
So I ended up doing focusing more on the pre-med and music component of it and going to Scandinavia. But yeah.
I love it. Well, that's it, right? That's a quintessential example of not only the type of students we have, but also, that we can find a place, right? We can find an experience, a place, an opportunity for you to take advantage. One of the questions here, I think also was, obviously we are in a pandemic. COVID has really impacted, everybody's lives and travel especially, and the ability to, study abroad. And I know you mentioned how you all have been able to pivot into these new and different opportunities, but maybe you can talk a little bit about how things, we wish we had a crystal ball. We don't. But what are some of the things that are being discussed as far as future kind of programs and things like that? Do you have any ideas of where I know I asked the tough question, but I know it's on.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm surprised it took this long. So we have pivoted to offer some virtual opportunities. And we have some students taking advantage of those, especially over the summer, because there's some cool options. But we're really looking forward, always with study abroad. I mean, I'm advising students who want to go abroad spring 2023 right now. That's the thing about study abroad, is it's one full semester, part of 8 semesters. And so we plan it out early and we sit down and we work towards it to make sure that you can get most of what you want, if not all of what you want. Like, the earlier you start, the more likely your study abroad is to check all your boxes. If you come in right before the deadline, you can still go. We'll still figure it out, but it's not going to be everything that you think you want or you might actually want. But I'm really looking at fall 2021 as a possibility. We believe that the university should have a decision about fall 2021 sometime in June. That's at least what we're kind of aiming for, is making that decision then. We do have students who are all signed up, all ready to go. We just had pre-departure orientation earlier today for those students to go, okay, so like, we're hoping, you're hoping, but register abroad and at Case Western for your housing and for your academics, and we've worked it out this way and that way and the next. And so we're still working with students very actively to try to make it work for them to go abroad. If fall 2021 doesn't go, which I would be surprised if it doesn't, but what do you, I do not have a crystal ball. I think that I feel very confident about spring 2022, and I really hope I don't eat those words, but spring 2022, the deadline for that is September 15th or September 1st, depending on the program that you're choosing. So I think those of you that are interested in studying abroad this coming spring, like, you need to make an appointment now, come in and talk to us. We've got advising availability, and we can start this summer planning for you to go abroad in the spring. I think the whole kind of study abroad world is really looking at spring 2022 as being like when the gates open.
Yeah, and for someone who loves to travel, even as part of their job, and I know, Autumn, you're in that boat as well. We're all really looking forward to that. Someone mentioned actually even the weather, apparently where we're at looks wonderful. So maybe you wanted to just comment on these pictures of where these come from.
Yeah, student photos again. So I'm in Cape Town, South Africa, which I love. I got to visit our program there back in 2015. That was fantastic. Very, very cool place. And Liana is currently at a waterfall in Croatia. We do not have a study abroad program in Croatia, but of course, when students study abroad, they do lots of travel, especially in Europe. It's a little bit of a box checking thing, for better or for worse. And so one of our students who was spending a semester, I think in like Austria, did a trip to Croatia and took that beautiful photo.
And thank you for providing the photo. We were doing that before this session and trying to find great photos. You have a lot to choose from, so always appreciate that. So one of the students was asking actually about what kind of determines the location. Is it typically the major that you have that kind of determines where you're going to end up going as far as a location? How does that kind of come about in the process?
The
Is
weather.
there a big influence, right?
Yeah, some majors are more specific and they have less options. They'll have like, 7 to 10 instead of 30 to 40. But that's where, if location is really important, or if anything outside of kind of the academics is a really important piece, come in and talk to an advisor earlier rather than later, because we'll make sure that we can work with you to find a program that meets your needs, as long as we have enough semesters to work within. Locations determined frequently by culture, by language, by weather, by food, when it's not determined by academics.
Yeah, that's a really great point. There's so many different factors that can come. Again, something to list and to talk about with your advisor.
Housing, the sport you want to do, your ability to do dance or horseback riding.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
It's there's many factors. That's why you have to have an appointment.
Yeah. One of the students asked actually about, is it possible to minor in the institution that you're studying abroad in? I think that's what the question is. So you are studying abroad. Would there be potential to minor in that institution? How is that possible?
Well, half of the credits for your minor have to be from case. So I don't think that is really.
So kind of the answer is no, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
If I'm getting the question right.
I may have done it incorrect. So if the person wants to clarify, that would be great. But I think the answer is no. I think if you're asking if you can study abroad and get a minor from that institution you're studying abroad in, clearly that answer is no. If you're talking about if you could take some classes towards your minor and then bring them back to Case Western, then the answer is yes. Okay.
But I think another way that it could be asked as well is like, can you go and, so universities don't provide standalone minors. Like you couldn't get a separate credential from a university for a minor only. Yeah, because it's just not.
So great question here. We've been talking about setting up an appointment with a education abroad advisor like Autumn. How early can someone make an appointment to talk to you?
As early as they want, right away. Sometimes I talk to prospective students and their parents. So I mean, it can be very early. I think the best time to really do it is sometime end of fall semester in your first year or beginning of spring semester, because just want to get you in the groove a little bit, and then declare a major or start thinking a little more seriously about a major, and then look at going. So, but if you wanted to come meet with us your first week on campus, we wouldn't stop you.
Yeah, I love the distinction between when is a good time to go. And I think that's so important, right? We encourage our students to kind of get situated, to get through that transition, to kind of also understand a little bit more about what they're interested in and what they're doing, and get into those dance, I really want to do equestrian, and now that's become my passion, and I want to take that abroad as well. And so that does take a little bit of time to do that, but you can always step into to the beautiful area and just meet Autumn, set up a meeting, but certainly I think there are better times, right?
Yeah, I think it's I'm also, I have to admit, like I'm kind of a little bit prioritizing the time of the study abroad office with that answer, because our spring deadline is September 15th, and that's right at the beginning of the school year. And we would prefer to have that time for sophomores and juniors who are trying to meet that deadline and need an appointment, like need it in the side of that 1 month. So we would, yeah, prefer for a couple of reasons, both for your peers and for you to think further through what it is that you're going to do, that it's a little bit later in the fall semester.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So the last question here that we have time to, and I know there was many more questions than we could necessarily get to, but the last question here was, what was the most influential places you went to, or that you kind of, some student stories that you heard were extremely impactful experiences that they had. So maybe you can end us with a few stories from some of our student experiences.
I think it's always incredible to hear stories of resilience and stories of grit. And I've heard from many students lately who were recalled in spring 2020, because I think this is a year later. And so the processing of the experience has happened already, and they're starting to come to the other side of what's a really difficult thing. And many of them are planning on going abroad again, but many of them will talk about how this study abroad experience, and especially because of the recall, is giving them tools to navigate difficult situations and giving them tools to think on their feet and to be able to pivot and to be able to figure out really difficult things, and to know that they can figure out really difficult things and still be successful, smart, wonderful people. We have quite a few student stories featured on our website, and we have a global perspectives page, and we've got little videos, and our social media is full of stuff like that. Our ambassadors as well have been doing some amazing throwbacks on Instagram. On our Instagram page, they've been awesome. So there's just, I think, even with the difficulties, that's where you actually learn the most. One of our students said, it's one of my favorite quotes. One of our students said, if literally, it's so favorite, I can probably recite it verbatim, said, if college is the process of transforming a child into adult, and study abroad is the honors version. The pace is a little bit faster, the work is a little bit harder, but the reward is that much more worth it.
Wow. Well, I think that is the place to end the session. What a better way to do so. Thank you so much for your time, Autumn. It was always such a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. We really appreciate your great questions. We know that you have many more. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are free. And as we said before, we have great people here that are supporting you in your process, in your pathway, that will take you to these great new experiences and challenges. And just appreciate everybody's time with this. So thank you so much, Autumn.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Definitely make an appointment. Hit us up. We want to help you make it happen.